Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Lisa Douglas Doe. Today is Monday, October 16th, and we are into week 4 of our mastermind group on the 15 invaluable laws of growth. Live them and reach your potential by John Maxwell, one of my mentors. So I'm excited to dig into the next two laws tonight on the law of design and the law of pain. But before we go forward, it's always good to reflect back on last week and see if anyone wants to share any valuable lessons you learned from the law of environment and the law of consistency. And maybe you've applied one of these laws to something you've done over the last 7 days to help you achieve a success, or maybe you've gone through a challenge that you actually realize that it is a challenge and you needed to confront. Has anyone wanted to reflect on the two past laws, either one, consistency or environment?
Lisa, it's Dottie. I would like to talk about what I've done in the last week. I've made up my mind that I am going to, every day, I'm going to post on Facebook one of the products that we market. I'm going to every single one of them. Every day, I'm going to post. And I've not done that before, so.
Okay, so that's going to be help you to be consistent in exposure, and from that you should start to see some positive results. Okay, good. All right. Anyone else want to talk about the law of consistency or your environment and how you may have made a change over the last 7 days?
Lisa?
Yes.
I want to give my, okay. So starting.
It's Dion, by the way, everyone. Go ahead.
Starting today, I am doing a 30-day challenge to bring 20 people into my book of business. And it's really a challenge. With the challenge, it's helping me. Today I think today it got me, some distractions happen, from it, but I know tomorrow I'm going to be a little more consistent than I was today. But I think it's really going to help me to stay focused on what I'm doing and, to build my business. And it's given us a challenge because what we had to do was we had to put a dollar amount on a donation to a group that we would not automatically say, like, if we're Democrats, to the Republican Party, if we're against gay marriage. So we had to put a dollar amount to that if we don't succeed in that challenge, that money goes to that.
Wow.
So that's really pushing.
That's really going to push a lot of people. So what was the website that you used for that? Because I've seen that before. It really does help you to stay focused, because you really don't want to give money to some area that you really don't support. So it is a good website if you guys are interested in having a type of accountability where you actually have to document, and there's like a group to help you stay consistent. What's the website, Dion?
Stick.com.
STICK?
STICKK, I think it is. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Okay. So just, you guys might want to check that out if you're looking for a way to be accountable for something that you're trying to achieve. It's really, I've heard a lot of people have success with it, whether you're trying to lose weight or save a certain dollar amount, or achieve a goal. That site could help you, because it would be, if you don't keep to what you say you're going to do, your money is going to go to where your mouth is, into something that you don't want. So thank you for sharing that, Dion. All right, so let's move on to today's lesson, which is the law of design. And if you have your book with you, I'm going to just turn to in my slides. Give me 1 second. Up to this page 4. Here we go. All right, and if you guys can mute yourself until you want to speak up, in case there's some background noise. All right, so we're going to talk about the law of design to maximize growth we need to develop strategies. So what I got out of this, just to start, is the word maximize. And maximize, we talk about your potential, maximizing your capacity. In order to help us get to where we're trying to go, we have to develop strategies. And a lot of people will design their vacation plans before they design their life, or they'll remodel their home before they want to save for retirement. There's so many things that we'll put to ahead of what's really important to us before designing for growth strategies in our lives. So what we're going to talk about is how systems permit ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results. And that's a quote by Michael Gerber, who wrote the book E-Myth. So think about, I always try to help people design by asking questions. You know, you have to find out, what is it that you want to get out of life? What are you trying to achieve? And these are questions that we have to ask ourselves, because we can have these grand ideas, but if you're not writing it down and you're not being specific, and when you share it with your accountability partner, or whether it's your mentor, that person can help you to describe or discover strategies to help you get to that goal faster. Instead of you trying to do something manually, someone might have an idea. Oh, you could do such and such. There's an app for that. Nowadays, there's an app for everything, right? So there may be an app for you to try to achieve something quicker, as opposed to you manually doing something in on an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document, as an example. So let's look at the notes here. Let's move on. If you don't have a plan, this is what I like at the beginning of the chapter. And this is from one of my mentors that I studied. This gentleman is no longer with us, Mr. Jim Rohn. He says, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall for someone else's plan. And guess what they may have planned for you? Not much, right? So, you know, think about when we're children, our parents have a plan for us, and so we usually follow the path of what our parents want us to choose, right? Until we go off to college and we start to think on our own and start to get exposed to different cultures and different classes, and we start to say, you know what? Because I know when I was young, I was like, oh, I'm really good at math. I'm going to be an accountant. But when I started to take those math classes, I wasn't good at it anymore. So I realized this is not what I want to do. And my mother was like, I thought you said you wanted to be an accountant. That's what we always talked about. And I was like, Mom, I'm not really good at it, so I'm not going to stick with something just because I said I wanted to do it. It sounds like what I should be doing is something different. And so I had to change my thought process on what I wanted to major on when I went into college. So we have to think about, if we don't have a plan, you're going to fit into someone else's plan. And that's what happens at work as well. If we're in a corporate environment, or if we're not the owner of that business and we're working for someone else, if you don't have a career path at that job, because hopefully you're in a good location where maybe they do have succession planning and a path for you to succeed. If you don't have a path, they're going to put you wherever they want you to go. And that may not be where you want to go. So we need to really take a close look at if we're designing our life the way we want it to happen. Another thing, let's move on to the next slide here. Life lessons. Life is very simple, but keeping it that way is difficult. If we don't have simple systems in place, things will be difficult. If you don't have a routine, things fall out of line really quickly. We have to make plans according to our values. And you have to first start with, what are your values? If you don't know what your values are, maybe you make a list of 5 things. I went to a seminar, as I mentioned last weekend, and some of my values I wrote down was integrity, compassion, communication are things that are important to me. So that way, if they're important to me, that's what I like to see in other people. We also have to make sure that our key decisions are helping us to manage our values, right? So as you can see here, keeping plans simple can be found in these questions. Can it be received easily? Can it be repeated easily? And can it be transferred strategically? So think about whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, whether it's your business, and if you're a business owner, whether it's a brick and mortar or a regular business, think about if you want to go on vacation. You have to be able to leave that responsibility to someone else Would they be able to take it easily and repeat exactly what you've done? Will you have comfort when you're on vacation, or will you be stressing out about it because you left it in someone else's hands and you didn't have a good system, a repeatable system in place for them to be able to manage the business while you're away? So that's something that we have to make sure that we are putting in place when we're thinking about life lessons and designing our lives. The next thing we're going to move on before we open up the call is designing your life is more important than designing your career. And I gave you my example on how as soon as I thought I was good at math, I was going straight for what I wanted to do in life. Where really we should be thinking about how do we want to live our life, and then it by default will determine what our career is going to be. I like what John Maxwell talked about. Life is not a dress rehearsal. And sometimes people are just walking around and not planning their lives, and so they're thinking that they're going to get another chance. But we have to realize that this is not for play, right? People would say, this is not for play. We have to make sure that we're living the way that we want, and it's not too late. If you're not happy with the way that your life is turning out, you can always press the reset button and start fresh and just start out a new plan and a new design for your life. And planning your life, we have to make sure that we plan everything by 2. Now, this is important when it relates to money, time, and energy. So let's say you have a new idea, you have a new product that you want to promote, or maybe you have I know Salima has a hair salon. Maybe she wants to offer a new service that's never been offered before. Well, she may have to actually plan for how much money is it going to take her to invest in this new product. And instead of just planning, let's say it takes $1,000 to make it happen, she needs to plan for double that amount, because you never know what's going to happen. Think about the time. Let's say, I know Loretta said she was going for a class where she wanted to get certified and be a substitute teacher, right? Well, maybe that class, she's thinking, oh, I only need to study, for 30 days and I'll be good. Well, maybe she has to double that time so that way she's really prepared for the exam when it comes up. So you have to make sure you multiply whatever you have planned times 2. And even your energy. Let's say you want to go to the gym and you're like, okay, all I need is 20 minutes in the gym. Well, maybe you should really plan for 40 minutes and you can adjust it going forward, because it may take you more energy, especially if you're just getting started. 20 minutes may not be enough in order for you to make some real dent in your process. Does anyone have any comments on life lessons and how we really have to plan strategically on this page?
Hello. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. It's
Okay.
Go ahead.
We'll start. I think that was Nellie first. Go ahead, Nellie.
Hi. So, I'm not sure if this applies, but you know that my house has been under construction for a long time, so a lot of things have been put off. So I have a little OCD, and I need to have my house clean, but I keep putting it off because it's such a big house. The dust keeps getting everywhere. So finally, I decided that I can't really do it all in one day. So I just decided to take, room by room. I mean, floor by floor, and I've been doing it that way. But another thing that I think is more important about what you were talking about, I feel that because I'm retired from my kids and everybody else around me, seems that they have the tendency of planning out my time because they feel like I don't have anything to do. Mm-hmm. And I've been talking about going back to work or doing something. I went to Fordham University. I have a bachelor's in computer science that I never used because I became a police officer. And when I did, someone did tell me I wasted 4 years of my life, which I never agreed to. But I've been talking about, maybe teaching, and, Lisa knows me for a few years, so I've been talking about that. And I think in our first chat, I mentioned how I put in an application and someone suggested that I emailed the superintendent, but I was hesitant. Mm-hmm. So I finally did it, and I was processed, and I could start, working next week. I picked my days, I picked the schools.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. But it was a little crazy because I saw him, and he's like, oh, just send me an email. And literally the next day, I got a phone call. And And it's not, I've gotten really comfortable, I think, being retired. I'm only 36. So I retired, I was 32. And now, my youngest son, he's 10. I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to plan my own life instead of letting everybody else decide. And I don't know if they're necessarily doing it, to be mean or to take advantage or anything like that, but it constantly feels like they're planning my life to, oh yeah, I left my notebook home, but you're not doing anything, so just go back and get it for me. Like those kind of things.
Right.
Like it almost goes unnoticed because I don't have a regular 9-to-5 job. So because it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time now, and I've even thought about getting my master's degree. I'm like, you know what, this would be a good gateway for me to start, because I can gauge to see if I really enjoy being in a classroom without being a full-time teacher. So that's how I'm planning my life right now.
That's awesome. That's a great example. One, congratulations on applying for the role and getting it immediately. And two, now you realize that, this is my life. I need to plan what I want to get done. And now the children and everyone else around you has to adjust to your changes because you have to go for what you want to get done. That's great, Nellie.
Thank you.
All right. Who was the next person? I think, was that Salima before?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Go right ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so what I have implemented over the last couple months, but just focusing on this chapter and what we're discussing now, is being consistent and also setting a timeline of what I need to do for my next project. Because sometimes if we have a major project that we're working on, each project may consist of several steps. So let's say we wanted to start a new business or a new company, and so that will require a marketing piece, creating a website. So for me, having a major project is important to document, but also the necessary steps to have that project complete. And sometimes it's 5 different additional projects that need to be done, and sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 20. So for me, I created a timeline for those specific items. That way I don't get lost in time, or just thinking, okay, well, I want to start this new company, and then like tomorrow the company started. Sometimes it takes a lot of steps.
Right.
So I created a timeline, and for me that helps because each month I will focus on this marketing piece for 2 months, and the next part I'll focus on the website for 3 months, and the vendors for another month. That way it all comes together, rather than us just thinking, okay, well, we want to put this together, but we don't realize that it includes a whole bunch of steps in order for us to get there.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That makes sense.
Helps me stay focused, and because when I work better with deadlines. When I know I have a deadline, boom, I know it needs to be done. And at the end of the day, and then it helps us to really realistically see how long would this really take us to bring it to pass? Because it may take a year, it may take 2 months, even though we write it down as a goal or a vision. It realistically, it may not happen in a day or a month. It may take a year or two in order for us to actually put it together properly and effectively. So that helps me, timelines and deadlines.
Well, that makes sense. And that way that makes sense, because you actually are designing the timeline. You're putting a project plan together to help you achieve your big picture goal. So that way you're not slipping, or you're probably putting in extra time. Just like it says here, you're multiplying things probably by 2, the time, the energy, and the money is going to take to open up that new venture. That's good.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, so let's move on to the next page. Here we have a quote by John Maxwell. Life comes with neither an instruction manual nor a chance to warm up. And that simply just goes back to how life is not a dress rehearsal. We have to be able to develop strategies and systems in order to help us get through our goals. So, to develop strategies, it depends on systems. Personal growth will come systematically, and systems are the solutions. So, when I look at my notes on this chapter, we have to be not just strategic, but we have to be deliberate and intentional about personally growing. So you may have some classes you want to take. Maybe you want to learn another language. Well, you're going to need a system to learn that language. I know that before when I was in school and not elementary, but junior high and high school, I was taking Spanish, and I was like, okay, one day I'm going to be able to go overseas and speak the language. And I did have that opportunity where I did go to Spain for a semester, and I lived with a Spanish family, so they didn't speak English. I had to know the language, and it helped me to really hone my craft. All my classes were in Spanish, my papers were in Spanish, and I just think back on today, I'm like, wow, how did I get that done? Where today I can't even write a sentence in Spanish anymore. But because I had to do it every single day, and I had to use the books, and it all led up to that process of learning the language over time. It didn't just happen overnight, like Salima talked about. I had been studying it for years, and finally I had my chance to actually practice it and apply it, which is one of the next things we're going to talk about, which is now that you've developed the strategy, you have to have an effective way of applying that system, because a lot of us will take information in, and I know a lot of you guys can relate to this. We learn, but we never apply. So we have to actually now apply what we've learned. Otherwise, we're just, sponges, just taking it all in, but we have to be able to use what we've learned in order to see some changes in our lives. So effective systems include, and this is where the application piece is going to come in, we have to consider the big picture. And on this area, will it help you to reach your big picture goals? You have to really design your vision. And I know that over the next couple of months, one of the things I wanted to get done is have a vision board party, a vision board event, because it really does work when you see your vision board every single day. You really do see that you're actually making progress over time, and things are starting to come off that vision board into your reality. But you got to have a vision, your big picture, and put it together. The next one is make sure that you have priorities. We can have a whole bunch of ideas. Think about you have these balls in the air. You're juggling all these different things, but you can't do them all at the same time. You have to prioritize what's important to you, and you have to be consistent with those goals. And I remember in the book, John Maxwell talked about, when is your best time to get things done? Are you a morning person? Do you like to do things at night? I know I can tell you I can do my best work happens at night because I don't like getting up early in the morning. But some of you probably are best in the morning because you have clarity and you're able to get things completed faster. Maybe some people like to do stuff at lunchtime. I don't know. But you have to think about when's your best performance. So if you are a morning person, don't meet with people. Don't let people interrupt your time in the morning. Use that time to get your priorities done so that way you can knock it out before the day really starts to hit you. If you're like me and you like to get things done at night, I like to stay up late. Sometimes I go to bed at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, but I'm making my notes for the next day on what I want to achieve for that day. Because in the morning, I just can't, I'm running around doing so many other things. I find that it's nice and quiet in the house for me. The kids are asleep, and I'm able to write down my thoughts during that time. The next item is you have to measure your outcome. There's no point in, spinning your wheels and you don't even know if you're making progress. You have to be able to measure it. And that comes back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we reflect on our past experience to help us provide us with insight, right? So you have to be able to measure, did I make progress today or was I really just spinning my wheels? What am I going to do tomorrow that's different to help me achieve my goal even faster? And be able to measure it is awesome. Number 4, application, which we just talked about. Where can you use what you've just learned? When can you use it? And who can use that information? So that way you can apply what you've learned. Number 5, organization. Doesn't, I know Salima just gave an example of how she's organizing by having a timeline. Some of you guys may have different examples, which you can share in a moment, or how you're using your organizational skills to help you stay focused and to stay on task. And number 6, promote consistency. You have to be able to have daily consistency is going to help you to start to see growth, and how your design, your process is going to see improvements immediately. So the secret to your success is found in your daily routine, or your consistent daily changes that you make. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Maybe choose one of these items for an effective system that's helping you to have a better design on your life plan. Anyone want to share one of them? I guess I'll go with Annette. Oh, wait, Dottie, were you going to say something?
I was going to say making priorities, making use of priorities. I'm really starting to, I guess I always kind of prioritize, but I just have so many other things going on. So I'm really starting to prioritize by blocking off time to commit to doing what I need to do for my business.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else want to share an example of one of these items that help you to have an effective system?
Lisa, I think organization, it's starting to get better. I think when I was working full time and my son was a little bit younger, I was very organized. I was, I made sure our clothes and our lunch, and we were set to, go, me get to work, him to school, and I had his clothes all ironed out and I was very well organized. But then when, now that I stay home, I find that organization is not there. But, when I got into the business, I realized I had to, prioritize some things and get organized. Like, I was saying last week, and I'll get organized. Like today, I had my stuff all over the place. I was working and, making calls and doing different things, and I had stuff. But before I go to bed tonight, I'll organize everything that I need for the next day, so I'm not just scattered, have stuff scattered all over the place.
Right. That's good. I mean, I can tell you, I can definitely relate to that, because when I was working in the city, because I had a short amount of time at home, I had to be organized. I had to lay things out, just like you said, the night before, so that I didn't want Tillman to have to worry about anything. The clothes are done. All he has to do is let them get dressed and make them breakfast, and I'd be done. But when we were both home, we'd both be pressing the snooze button. Who's going to get up? We'd try to act like we didn't hear the alarm. Because we were like, oh, we have plenty of time. Somebody will get it done. And then you're rushing. And I think I shared this with Annette before. It's like in the morning when Aiden was before he'd get on the bus, it'd be like the NASCAR, where we'd be taking the pajamas off, throwing the clothes on, making sure he had food. It was crazy. And then he'd have to run out the door. It's like he barely had a chance to do anything. So for me, getting organized and having priorities is a key area that I've made improvement over time as well. And just application. I mean, so many times I've learned items, or I've taken a class and I have this whole notebook of notes, and then I don't apply anything, and a year's gone by and I find that notebook. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I went to that class and I didn't do anything that I learned. And so I have to learn to say, okay, enough of that. Let me go out and apply what I just learned so I can start to see a change manifest in my life. So those are two good examples. Anyone else want to share on this area? An effective system for you?
Sure. Madeline, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you
Yeah,
guys
let me
hear me?
let me start with Annette, and then we'll do Madeline.
Yeah, the areas that you guys talked about, priorities, organization, application, was awesome. Um, as I was looking at it, I was thinking more about considering the big picture, and it's kind of like, what is it that I actually want to do? And what I started doing, and I guess it's part of the reflection from, our other laws, it was really looking at what I wanted to do, but also bringing it to life. And that means me writing out and seeing exactly what it is that I wanted to do. And I think that went with me now being able to choose the right, well, what I consider to be my right priorities and how I'm going to apply them. And it's like, let's say it was losing weight. I'm like, okay, at a certain point, I want to be this weight. When I am this weight, I will feel like this. I will, like different things, like the aches and pains will go away, different things, making it more specific to me so that I can internalize it.
That's good. I like that.
And so that is something that works for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, you have to. It's very similar. Whatever you see in your mind, you think it, you can achieve it. You just have to be able to, and that's good. You're speaking it out loud so it can manifest. That's awesome. Okay, Madeline.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go right ahead.
Awesome. I would have to say mine has the combo of application, what now, and organization, simply because me being organized is going to help me to apply whatever it is that I need to do next, because I have so much going through my head at one time and so many different projects that I have going. I have to keep those separate, and a lot of times that gets a little confusing and hard for me. So once I apply what I want to do and I'm putting it to paper, and I'm like you with the books, and I've gone through classes and training, and I did that today. I found like 4 binders with stuff, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'm trying to apply the things that I learned to put it in the categories that they belong with what I'm doing, because I have the blogs, I have the business, I have ministries, dance ministry. So the what now can become overwhelming if I do not keep the organization. So it does take a lot of my time, but those two I'd have to say are all in one for me.
That's good. Well, I like how you just said, well, the application piece can be overwhelming. And I think what we need to do is maybe choose 1 or 2 things that we've learned that you want to apply. Because if we try to apply all 10 things, then we'll be overwhelmed, like you just said, and we won't get anything done. But if you just choose 1 or 2 things that you want to try out and try to apply in your life or in your business, and then after maybe 30, 60, 90 days, you're starting to see a change, then go ahead and take on 2 more things that you learned. I think that could help as well.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Now, before we go to the law of pain, there's one thing I want us to, I'm going to put it on the screen here. Let me just duplicate the slide. And I want you guys to think about, I'm just going to put some keywords on here. Just take this out. Give me 1 second. And the question is, I want you to take the time to assess which areas of your life should receive the most strategic planning. And I'm going to put some words here, and you determine which areas need more strategic planning. Is it your career? Could it be your faith? How about your family? Your health? I know I need to work on that area. How about your hobby or your business? I'm going to put business as a separate item. You have your marriage, for those of you who are married. And let's add a couple others. Your personal growth. And lastly, your free time. And the reason why I put free time on here is because you can't be so busy that, you can't even spend any time with friends or family, and people are starting, your family's like, yo, what's up with you, Lisa? You can't even hang out with us anymore, and you don't even take any time to relax. free time is important as well. Don't sleep on that, because it actually can help you to refresh and actually rejuvenate and help you to come up with more creative ideas to help you to grow. So again, the question for you guys, a takeaway on this session is, what areas of your life that you see here that you should receive the most strategic planning or needs to have more strategic planning? So that's just a takeaway. You don't have to answer it right now, but just something to think about. So we're going to move on to the next law, which is the law of pain. Good management of bad experiences lead to great growth. Now, this was an interesting chapter for me because nobody likes pain. Nobody wants to deal with it, right? And we're always like, we're going to be talking about the invaluable laws of growth. Who would have thought the law of pain would have been a growth area for us, right? We think growth is exciting, but then there's this chapter, pain. So when we go through this, when I went through this, I realized that, nobody wants to go through pain. Think about, Super Bowl Sunday, or football happens on now Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, Saturdays. They have college football. These guys are getting hurt every single game. But the truth about bad experiences is that everyone has them, as I said before. No one likes them. And few will make bad experiences positive experience. So what do I mean by that? How many of us have gone through a bad experience, and it wasn't until maybe way later on, it could be years later, that you realize, you know what, I really did learn from that bad experience. And it actually turned out to be a positive experience. Have anyone else gone through that before?
Yes.
It happens. Yeah, it happens to all of us, right? I want you to think about that every pain introduces a person to themselves. So we don't want to go through it, but we can learn from it. And there's 3 types of pain. There's your past, there's present pain, and then there's going to be future pain, because there's never going to be any person on earth that's never going to go through any type of pain in the future. So when you go through your past pain, all you can do is you have to ask yourself, have you maximized your growth from that past bad experience, from that painful experience? Because if you keep dwelling on it, but you're not feeling like you're learning from it, then you're still just seeing it as a bad experience. You have to see what positive thing came out of that past pain. If it's present pain, like some of us right now could be going through a pain happening right now in our present time, right? Well, you have to ask yourself, in your present pain, am I gonna grow from this? What am I gonna get out of this pain that I'm going through right now? You may be too close to it right now that you can't see it, because you're just going through it. But remember that your present pain will allow you to have some type of growth, and a positive experience will come out of it. And then for your future pain, all you can say to yourself is, am I prepared to grow from that pain? I know it's gonna come. All I can say to myself is, I'm gonna be prepared to grow through it, and it's going to help me to have a better situation going forward. So when these things come up, anything bad happens to us, it helps us to become better leaders. And you may not want to hear that, but it's true, okay? So in the book, on page 120, I think it was 124, John Maxwell talked about the various types of pain. The pain of inexperience. I have never been through that. The pain of incompetence, the pain of disappointment, the pain of conflict, and the pain of change. This is just a few. On this page, we'll go through the rest. But as I started to look just at the ones that I have here, the pain of disappointment, I've gone through that a lot, where you're thinking, you may have great expectations, and then you either let yourself down, or someone else lets you down, because you were having great expectations for someone else to come through on something. So you have to learn how to grow from that, right? The pain of conflict. I'd love to hear from you guys on, one of these you see on the screen. There's like 2 other slides on the different pain files, but just from these 5 that you see on the screen, have any of you learned from these different types of pain? Inexperience, incompetence, disappointment, conflict, or change? Loretta, are you there?
I'm here.
Do you want to? Are any of these kind of speak to you?
Oh yeah, pretty much all of them. But reading, well, when I was reading the chapter, I did I reflected on the pain of change, because I remember when maybe about two or 3 years ago, when my parents were selling my childhood home, and that was a painful experience for me, because I lived in that house ever since I was a year old, and that was when I was single, before I was married, and my brother, my brother, and our kids. We was one big happy family, and then my parents came and said, "Okay, we're selling the house." So that was a difficult time for me. That change, that transition. Having this home with so many memories for almost 40-something years.
Right.
And that was very painful. But that same year that they did, sell their home, I actually got married and moved out. And my brother had, he went his way. So I did, I guess I could say I did grow from that, because I moved on, and it was better. I mean, my getting married and moving out and being on my own, but it helped me to grow. It got me out of my parents' home and being under them, and it helped me deal with the situation also.
That's good. That's a great example. Thank you. Anyone else want to share one of these pain examples of what you've learned from it, or you have experienced it?
Lisa?
Yeah.
This is Dion. I think the same one with Loretta, the pain of change. I think, and I've learned a lot from this, from my divorce. I didn't want that to happen. As a person who, when I got married, marriage for me was supposed to be till death do us part. And, it didn't work out that way. And in between the time of, when I went through the separation and stuff, the change was really hard for me, because, I saw my son and my husband as my family. So it was really, really, it was extremely hard. And, but I learned, I learned from it. I learned some of the mistakes that I made in the marriage, because I believe that, it takes two to make it and two to break it. So I learned from some of the mistakes that I made in my marriage, and that the next time, because I do believe that I'm going to get married, it taught me some lessons about, what things I wanted to have in my marriage.
That's great. That's good. Yeah, there's a quote on page 126 by Warren Lester, where it says, "Success in life comes not from holding a good hand, but in playing a poor hand well." So think about, when you maybe you're playing spades and you get you think that you could have a bad hand, but maybe you could play it well if you have a good partner and actually have a good hand after all. All right, so let's look at some other pain examples. The pain of bad health, the pain of hard decisions, the pain of financial loss, the pain of relationship losses. I can tell you, from me, the pain of financial loss is a big one that stands out for me, because Tillman and I have invested in a lot of different businesses over the years. I think this is even before we had kids. We're thinking, yeah, this is gonna be the one. I'm not gonna have to work anymore, and we've lost like hundreds of thousands of dollars on bad investments. But all I can do is learn from it, and I can't get bitter. It's just going to help me to be better next time and make better decisions, right? Otherwise, I won't be able to move forward, and I won't be able to identify another good opportunity that will come my way. So we have to think about how with every problem comes an opportunity, and vice versa, because it could go either way. But that's one of the things that I learned from, is the pain of financial loss. And also bad health. I think about in my family and how like diabetes runs in my family. My grandfather had it, my mother had it, and how I have to be conscious about how I eat and how I have to drink lots of water, because those things run in the family, and I don't want to have any bad health situations going forward. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Any of these that come out
Lisa?
to Nellie? Go ahead, Nellie.
Yeah.
So I think not only from this slide, but going back to the other slide and this one, I'm sorry, hard decisions and relationship loss, as well as the conflict. A few months ago, my mom and I had a really big fallout, and regardless of what she may think, that I think she may have construed in her head, you know, I just was so disappointed in the way she handled something from a very long time ago and how she would still bring it up, and very conflicted because, you know, my father died, was killed by a drunk driver almost about 11 years ago, and I know that he wasn't the best dad, and you know, he lived in the Dominican Republic and we lived here, so we only saw him in the summer. And she seems to be very resentful that I idolize him or that I still cry over him, because he wasn't the best father. And you know, but I made a decision, you know, that day. I did decide a few months ago that I seemed to be really angry at everything and for anything. So I started going to therapy, and it was my first day, and I left there and I was in a really good place, and she called me, and I told her, I was like, you know, Mom, I think I found someone that's a good match for me. He understands me, and I want you to do me a favor. I don't want you to talk about this particular person anymore because it hurts me. That if you want to have a relationship with that person, go right ahead. Please don't make me part of it because it hurts me. But it took me 36 years, but I finally understood that the only thing I can help is what I do. I can't help what you, I cannot control what you do. And her reaction was very nasty and really angry. And I decided that day that I wasn't going to speak to her for a very long time. And it was very, very hurtful for me because she's my mom and I love my mom and we talked every day. So I kept waiting for her to call me and apologize. And the months were just going by and it just never happened. So her mother, my grandmother, got sick and she came here and she calls my boyfriend talking about can he help her find a place to stay because I guess my grandmother's house was not suitable. She was with my uncle. So I called her. I'm like, and I had not spoken to her in a long time. I called her and I said, listen, what's going on? She's like, oh, I'm like, I'll be there in 20 minutes. I'll come pick you up. So I picked her up. I brought her to my house. And for the next 3 days that she was here, she acted like nothing ever happened. So my uncle, who's a very religious guy, said, you know, why don't you sit down and speak to the two of us? Speak with the two of us so that there's no fighting in between. And he said to me, he gave me some of the best advice. He said, your actions by coming to pick us up and doing everything that you did without bringing anything up, and I was literally driving them around everywhere for those 3 days trying to find a nursing home for my grandmother. He says, that speaks louder than words. He said, don't say anything to your mom, and why don't you do this? He told me to own it. He said, take full responsibility for what she did and for what you did, and then like that you won't be so conflicted anymore because you're not going to keep, he said, the minute you stop waiting for her to apologize, he's like, if you keep waiting for her to apologize, he's like, I'm sorry, I know your mother, it's never going to happen.
Right.
He's like, but if you stop waiting for it, he's like, you probably feel better because now you're not waiting for it. He's like, make a decision. He's like, keep doing what you're doing, keep living your life, keep making, you know, decisions that are going to make you healthier emotionally or whatever it is. So all of that, you know, the conflict and I still feel like I lost part of the relationship with my mother because I'm no longer waiting for her to apologize. And I speak to her, and the minute if I see that things are going left, I cut the conversation. I'm not rude, I'm not nasty. I have 3 kids, so like, oh, I gotta go, I gotta do something for my kids, like whatever it is. But it was very hard to deal, pretty much dealing with a relationship lost, that it's not completely lost,
Mm-hmm.
and it's your parent. So I'm still kind of struggling through it a little bit, but it was definitely a learning experience. But taking full responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
even though whether it was my fault or not, really, really helped me.
But that's good. I mean, even though it's still difficult and it's still painful right now because it just happened, that it sounds like it was a freeing experience though, because what your uncle said, how you sometimes, like he said, you didn't even have to bring it up. You just like, you know what, we already know she's not going to change. Let me just go ahead and live my life. But what I'll do is I'm a curtail that part of the discussion so that way it doesn't affect you anymore. That's good.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. We just have a few more in the pain file. The pain of not being number one. The pain of traveling. If you travel a lot and maybe you're away from your family and your kids, you may feel guilty. The pain of responsibility. Anyone relating to any of these items of pain on the screen?
Lisa, Annette,
Yeah, go ahead, Annette.
I think the pain of responsibility. A lot of things with family, work, everything, where I have stepped up and taken responsibility for a lot of things just to ensure that they get done. And that responsibility, it does come with a lot of um, expectations, probably from myself, but also um, I've learned that there's a lot of times when I expect things from other people, and quite frankly, my expectations of them doesn't mean anything if they're not expecting the same things from themselves. So that's something that I did have to learn. So I can expect them to do anything they want, but that's on me, and that I have to manage that. Um, Responsibility, I guess that also comes with, it could be disappointment, but again, that is my being able to manage my own expectations. Because I realized that a lot of times, you know, I expected other people to act a certain way, maybe act in the way that I would, and that it doesn't work that way because they're not me. They have an idea of what they want to do themselves. And it just speaks to what Nellie's saying as far as just looking at it and saying, you manage yourself, you manage your own responsibility, you manage your own expectations so that the disappointments and other things that may affect you are not there in the forefront. So responsibility does come with a lot of, I guess, growing.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I can definitely relate to that one. Even when you're traveling, you feel like I'm still responsible for things that are happening at home. And I know, Annette, I know from your experience, sometimes you feel like you can't go away because you're like, who's going to take care of my mom or do the things that need to be done around the house? And the people who are behind, they may not do it as well as you might want them to do it. So you feel responsible in that way. Makes sense. All right, so now we have to talk about how to turn our pain into gain. And sometimes you have to think about pain as a gift. You know how people say no pain, no gain? Well, you should also say no pain, no growth, because that's the only way that we're going to learn because of the law of pain. So we have to choose a positive life stance. Decide that life is basically good. And that's important. I was thinking of a couple of examples, and some of you may know when Aiden was a baby, he got really ill and he almost died. He had caught meningitis, and throughout since birth to not recently, thank God, but he used to be in and out of the hospitals from different seizures and so on. And so probably like fifth or sixth time that it happened, and we were out of town. And the nurses would always say to Tillman and I, wow, you guys seem so calm. I don't understand how you're able to manage. And we told the nurse that, you know what, we realize that if we are panicking and if we're not in a good state of mind, then he can feed that bad energy off of us. So we always wanted to be positive around him, even if he was conscious or not. We wanted to have a positive life stance to help him with have a quicker recovery and to realize that his parents are always there. And the nurses were just floored by that, because we tried not to dwell on the bad situation that he was in. We tried to talk about the positive things and what's going to happen when he gets out of this and so on. So we have to have the way you think about things. It could be a blessing or a curse. If something happens to you, it's the way you react to that situation, whether you're going to take it as a blessing or if you're going to take it as a curse. The next thing is embrace and develop your creativity. When you have no place to go, right? Or when you're like, man, I don't know how all these bad things are happening to me. How's this going to happen? How am I going to make it work? Well, when you're backed into a corner, sometimes that's when your creativity starts to flow. And I like in the book when they talked about the farmer and how his farm was being flooded and all the chickens were dying, and he went and complained to his wife, and his wife was like, well, maybe we should just start having ducks. Ducks can float in water, so they'll never go away. So the wife was creative. When he was stressing about the situation, she was able to turn that bad situation into something creative where they can pull through it. And then lastly, embrace the value of bad experiences. We all face them, but we have to be able to learn from them. And if we don't learn from them, that's when we start to have issues and we'll stay stuck. So we have to turn that pain into gain. And with every problem comes opportunity. So I would love to hear from people. And this is I wanted to mention the quote by John Maxwell. He says, in this life, there are winners and there are learners. There's not losers. Don't think of every situation or a failure as a losing situation. You just learn from that failure that may have happened to you. And I don't know if any of you guys saw the movie Sully. Remember Captain Sully, who landed that plane in the Hudson that they hit all those birds and stuff? I mean, his whole career was dwindled down into that one situation, how he was able to save all the passengers. He could have panicked. He could have, had a horrible situation occur to him, even worse than just landing in the Hudson. But he was able to think quick and turn a bad situation into something positive. I'd love to see if you guys, anybody want to add anything based on what we have on the screen here?
Lisa?
Yes, go ahead, Nellie.
So I guess it's not as current, but I used to always think of my past or sometimes my childhood that, oh my God, so many negative things happened. But then, I guess in the last few years, I realized if perhaps those things didn't happen, I wouldn't be the woman I am today. I mean, the main reason why I wanted to go to college and get an education was because, I didn't grow up in the healthiest of households. And also my mom used to work every holiday. She used to work 2 jobs, do this, do that. And I'm like, I don't want to live like that. I don't want my kids to live like that. I have to go to college. The last grade my mom did was an 8th grade. And for me, I didn't start speaking English until I was about 12 years old. So it became so important for me to go to school that I remember in high school, I would literally hang out with my teachers during my lunchtime. And I had my whole life planned, and then I got pregnant. So I guess my plan was not so perfect. But even then, instead of, I had teachers who told me I should have an abortion. I had other people who told me I should drop out. I had people who told me you should apply to a community college. And I was very focused. I said, no, now, instead of, not that my daughter's negative, but, getting pregnant when you're 2 months shy of 18 is not ideal. But I was very determined. I'm like, no, now I have to fight even harder to give this kid an example. So the bad experiences from my childhood and my misstep of getting pregnant so young only pushed me more. And it was like hell graduating from college, but I did it. And I did it in time. I graduated in 4 years. I started college when she was 4 months old, and I graduated when she was, just a few months before she turned 5. So it was, I turned all that negative and I used it, all the aggravation, the rage, everything, just to get ahead. And it's even till today, I'm still doing that.
That's an awesome example. So you took a bad experience, even though it wasn't the best. The good thing is that you had a beautiful daughter from it. You made yourself the victor, not the victim, as you see on here. You took responsibility for your life and accountability, and you realized that you had to be the role model for your daughter, because we always want to have a better future for our children than we have for ourselves. So that's good. Anyone else want to share anything on this slide before we close out the call?
Lisa?
Yes, go ahead, Madeline.
Hey. Okay. Yes, it was basically from I guess the last 3. I was kind of pulling. I guess I couldn't unmute myself fast enough. But the pains that you had gone through, or several of them, and it went all the way from the experiences of inexperience, the disappointment, the change, and then it moved into your health and the income and the decisions, and then the responsibility. And then, of course, it's down to just taking all of those bad situations, because I encountered all of that at once. And so it was a challenge for me being a single mom. And, you're looking at the responsibility of falling from me being ill with the bad health. I got sick and I was paralyzed. And so my daughter literally had to take that role. And it hurt me so to see her struggling in how she was going to take care of me and stay in school. And, it was just so much. And I could see it in her little face. She was just trying to be the adult, but I could see her heart. And that was hard for me, because I was the one that was the breadwinner. I was everything for her. I was, the cheerleader, I was everything for her. And now that she was in her second year of college, it just made it even harder. So, the responsibility of finances, I was the one that she counted on. And so all of those things at once, with the inexperience of her, where I was like, I have taught her enough to be able to do this. And, why is this happening? All of that extra that was going along with that. But you learn from it down the road. Now looking back, she handled it beautifully. I survived it, because it was just breaking my heart to see my baby girl have to just take care of her mom now, and how she just stepped up and, took care of me. And now we're in this beautiful place to where we can look back on some of the things that we had to deal with and laugh. Financially, it hit us hard. She ended up working 2 jobs, but she graduated. I think I was screaming and hollering harder than she was, but I couldn't make it to her graduation because I had another series of seizures that put my left side paralyzed. So I couldn't even go to her graduation, and it hurt her. And so we both were like going through these pains together, but it made us better. It made us stronger. And so now we're in the position where we can help more people when we encounter individuals who are dealing with that. So learning from all of those scenarios has been that pain. The pain is gain. So I'm going to stop.
No, that's awesome. Because you were just giving examples of how she had different pains than you had.
Yes.
So it was twofold in your household.
Yes, it was. Yes. And as a mother, it was really hard to watch her go through that, because I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk. I couldn't express to her. And I couldn't cry in front of her either, because I didn't want her to know that it was hurting me to see her hurt.
Right.
So it was a challenge.
So we just heard 2 examples of people who were taking responsibility for their lives, how you guys were the victor, not the victim. And think about this. It's not why me or woe is me. We have to ask ourselves, we can either give reasons or we can get results. So instead of saying excuses, I use the word reasons. So we can either give excuses or we can get results. And so that's when we have to go through the painful situation and realize that it's just for a season, it's just for a moment. But at the end, you'll be able to grow from that. And that pain will end up being a gift to you in the long run.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So life begins at the end of your comfort zone, We all know that. So what I want us to do is we're going to end on that note. But this was a really good session, a discussion with you guys tonight on the law of design and the law of pain. So remember, I want us to think about the areas in our lives that we think that we need to be more strategic about, whether it's your career, your faith, family, health, hobby, marriage, personal growth, or your free time. And then also, reflect briefly on the pains that you may have gone through that you might still be holding on to, and try to find a lesson in that pain so that way you can grow from it. You might have an aha moment and turn that bad experience into something positive that can catapult you to the next level. So I hope everyone enjoyed tonight's session.
Yes, we did very much.
Excellent. So next week, we're going to be talking about the next two laws, which is the law of the ladder and the law of the rubber band. That's next Monday at 9 o'clock. So again, I want to thank everybody for logging on. This session was recorded. I will upload it on the private YouTube channel and send it out to you guys. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to call me. I'm available to assist with anything. And thank you so much for participating tonight. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Bye.